right, this is Gabe from MotoringFile. I'm with Vikash, Joshi. And Vikash, what is your formal title at MINI USA?
Yeah, my formal title is MINI Product Planning Specialist. My informal title is MINI Enthusiast.
There you go.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love that. So, yeah, actually, Vikash, let's start there. Tell us about your journey, your MINI journey.
Yeah, I would say my journey is a bit like it's almost choreographed. However, it is true. I started by watching The Italian Job.
Okay.
Shortly after it came out.
Which one?
The
second one.
The most recent version.
Got it.
The second
Okay.
one, 2002.
Right.
And I just knew I needed one of those. I saw the Minis on Instagram. I need one of those cars.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Finally, I was able
totally.
to get one. It was at the time a pre-owned R53 Pepper White Black.
Nice. Great
Panther.
combo.
Yeah, Panther Black Leatherette. Web spoke wheels. 6-speed
Web-spoke,
manual.
yeah.
Great car. I regret selling that car.
I regret selling my last one as well.
But then after that, I was highly involved with my local clubs in Atlanta, and then began as a motoring advisor at Global Imports Mini in Atlanta.
Fantastic.
From there,
So you were
went into
ground
product
up.
training. Yeah. I started as an owner, as an enthusiast.
And so you went to, you essentially went to corporate or HQ or whatever the phrase is in New Jersey, right? And you moved to New Jersey.
I did.
And took a role, and now you are really, from what I see, is critical to the product in the United States.
Yeah, and I like to bring all of my knowledge of being an enthusiast, being in dealer sales, and also working with dealers, from as a regional product trainer prior to my current position.
That's awesome.
And try to make sure that we're advocating for all of the right equipment and products that the U.S. base needs.
I think that's one thing that's really interesting before we get to this car is that, and I've heard it from Pat McKenna as well and others, the customer is really what you are continuously focused on.
Yeah.
Always trying to do right by the customer, and it sounds like it's just, a line somewhere, but I've seen it firsthand. It's pretty cool how dedicated the whole team is, and you are. And I think it shows in some of the decisions that have been made. And I know people watching this are going to say, oh, well, I used to like this on Minis and now it's gone, or they're going to have some, bone to pick. But from my vantage point, everything that you all have done has been, to the best of your ability, really centered on what the customer wants.
Right, absolutely.
And so we are now sitting in, speaking of what the customer wants, a larger MINI Countryman. It's grown.
Yeah.
And that's, before people start to freak out and say it's not a Mini anymore, well, that's what the customer has been looking for generally, right?
Absolutely. Ever since actually even before the R60 Countryman first came out, there were people who were enthusiastic about the brand. They were growing out of their cars. They wanted to still stay in the brand. They needed a bigger vehicle. Ultimately, that's when we were able to launch the R60 Countryman. And since then, there's been a lot of demand for growth. People continuously still growing out of their Countryman.
Yeah. Having families,
exactly,
and
having
dogs
families,
and
or
whatever.
maybe a business, or some other needs that they have to load a lot of gear or people in their cars. And with this latest iteration of the Countryman, I think it's fair to say, looking back here, there's plenty of space.
And it's so when we heard this morning from Oliver Himmler, who's head of design at MINI, that it didn't feel right to make it a copy of the X1. They sized it down, and they actually took the sort of the rear end of the Active Tourer, which is only sold. It's not sold in the United States, but it's another, let's say, iteration of a BMW on the same platform. And they combined it all, creating something that had more Mini proportions.
Yes.
And I think that's the thing that I've found. If I could just give you my quick take on some of it. It feels and looks like a Mini in terms of proportion, and it sort of hides its mass. Not to say it's massive, because we look around, we're just next to 5 Series, and this isn't bigger than that.
No.
So we're not talking about a vastly bigger car, but it is bigger, and it's also faster. Well, I shouldn't say it's faster. We'll get there in a second. It's more efficient. It's definitely more aerodynamic, which is very cool. So we're sitting in a brand new Countryman JCW, which has 312 horsepower.
Yes.
And then of course you go down from there, the Countryman S, and we will not be getting the Countryman C, but that's the, we'll call it maybe a base model, if you will, for some markets.
We can call it the Cooper equivalent of what we have in today's F60.
Got it. Of course, there's going to be, this is all-wheel drive standard, there's going to be all-wheel drive available on the S, and then we've got the BEV, which is coming as well. The battery electric vehicle, by the way, for those playing at home.
Yeah. Now, if it's all right to just pause right there,
please.
You mentioned on the S all-wheel drive available, all-wheel drive standard.
There we go.
Yeah.
You heard customers. They probably always wanted that, didn't they? No, that's actually a really good clarification. So basically, every Countryman, at least that I'm aware of from an ICE perspective, is going to be all-wheel drive.
In the U.S. market.
In the U.S.
Yeah, so a Countryman as a whole will be all four all the time. And that does, of course, lend itself to demand. We see our take rates overall for all four being more so than the two-wheel drive variant in the current generation Countryman. But, you know, there's a lot of people who think all four means inclement weather, snow, ice, dirt, something like that. It's also performance. I mean, that off-the-line power, you know, is translated really well with an all-four system versus a two-wheel drive.
And two-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, I mean, you've got essentially your mass going backwards in acceleration, and what happens then is your front tires don't have grip, which any owner knows, and so having that rear-wheel drive be able to kick in milliseconds, to your point, gets you off the line. So the BEV is coming as well, the battery electric vehicle.
Yes.
And that is going to be, from what I saw, pretty powerful, it looks like. That's going to be, you know, we don't know yet, but it looks like it's going to have a different level of performance. Really excited about that product. The ICE, internal combustion engine, again, I'm using acronyms here, we're going to see that happen earlier next year, Q2. Is that right?
We will see the ICE products come earlier than the BEV next year. Yes. So yeah, realistically on the ground at the dealers in your showrooms, Q2.
Okay. And then the electric, the EV will be coming later in the year.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. Exactly.
That's really exciting. So let's talk about this car really briefly. I mentioned the horsepower figure, 312.
Yes.
You're talking to an enthusiast audience that knows minis. They've all seen the 295 foot-pound of torque.
Yes.
What's up? Because it was 331 before.
It was 331 in the F6. Now there's been some technical changes with the drivetrain. So yes, this in particular is the most powerful JCW we've ever had. 312 horsepower. We've never had anything higher than that from the factory. 295 foot-pounds of torque. You know, yeah, it's a little bit lower, but when you drive the car, and I can assure you, I've spent a lot of time driving this car in Germany and here in the U.S. as well. It's not lost. Like, you don't lose that Mini feeling. But there was a technical update to the engine and transmission. Most of that just comes down to homologation reasons and various government regulations that we have to work within from not just our government but global governments. And you know, meeting certain efficiency standards, and that's what we ended up landing on. But once again, yes, it's a lower number. That doesn't mean it's not fun to drive.
Well, and we
I'm
also
sure you it is.
You can turn away. We also know that BMW serially underrates their cars, so that actual number may be higher. Who knows? The other thing that's cool and new in this car is this is now a DCT, and we talked about this before. I thought the ASIN was a really good transmission, the 8-speed previously, but it suffered from the normal torque converter kind of lurch from third to second. The DCT is much more fluid, which I'm excited about, and coupled with that much power and you know, throttle response from a JCW, it sounds fun.
Oh yeah, it is. And because this is a JCW, you have the Sport DCT, which of course includes the paddle shifters behind the steering wheel as well, which of course adds to that additional level.
Very cool. Yeah. So a couple more questions. This is an exclusive color we're looking at right now with this JCW. What is this again? It's a dark gray.
Yeah, the exterior color is called Legend Gray. Legend Gray Metallic. And then the roof and mirrors on this particular build is Chili Red 2.
Really? Tell us about Chili Red 2.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
We have a new shade of Chili Red. And yeah, you will see that on the roof and mirrors here. It's going to be available as a body color as well. And it's an updated look of the classic red.
It seems like it's a little more vibrant.
It is. Okay. I would say it's a faster red.
So we've got Legend Gray on the outside of this car. You know, there'll be the typical color palette I assume associated with minis. Is there white roof available still in this car, or is it just body color black and red?
Yeah, for the Countryman, you'll have several different contrast roofs available. Of course, you can choose a body color. With that, chili red is exclusive to JCW, so you can't get chili red roof on any other model. We will have a black. We will also have a new color called Vibrant Silver.
Oh,
And
that's
so,
right.
Yeah.
Which is a matte.
It's a matte
paint.
finish, yeah. Now
Very
you
cool.
won't see it on the JCWs in particular. You will see it on the S and SE, which I'm sure you've seen a lot of photos already of that.
In fact, the launch car was in smoky green
with the Vibrant Silver.
Yeah, the Vibrant Silver.
Exactly right.
Yeah, okay.
And it is a matte finish. It's a great looking roof color.
First matte color we've ever seen on a Mini officially, right?
We've had
Except
in the
for
R60 days there was a special edition
in France, yeah.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
And
There's
then
a matte black. As I said that, I realized
it's the first matte finish not in black that we've seen.
There we go. So then we've got, so there's some changes, and I know Rebel Green is RIP, which is personally a shame, but I know time marches on and maybe there's new colors coming. But we also are sitting inside of a JCW, and we've got this really beautiful dash, which you'll see photos of, with this red stitching and these really interesting looking sport seats, which have this fabric to it, and of course the vest skin am I pronouncing it? Vest skin, which is a synthetic leather, and I know people are freaking out about that concept. I can tell you, I'm touching it. It feels better than the Chesterfield leather. It's not maybe as nice as the lounge leather, although it's not far off. However, the steering wheel feels like the lounge leather. It feels incredible.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I felt this material, nobody told me that this wasn't leather. I was fully convinced we're still using the Wakanapa leather that we have in the lounge seats, and once I found out that this is truly a leather-free car, I mean, I was taken aback, and that's going to make a lot of folks really happy that have been asking for leather-free options.
As somebody
that's including the steering wheel and all parts of the car.
As somebody who, I like that, but I also like leather. My only ask is make it feel as good as leather, and in my view, and honestly, my real assessment here is they have. It does feel as good, if not better, than leather at times. So it's definitely a nice change. The seats are new as well. I've noticed a couple things. The bolstering in the back feels about the same. The bolstering on the bottom feels a little less aggressive, if I'm sort of reading this right. Also gone is the thigh bolster, which I was really disappointed about. However, spending time in this car, I think it's not as relevant as I thought. Once I get in it and kind of, just sit, move around. The seat is a little longer, and I think
seat bottom.
It kind of accommodates my femurs, my long femurs. I don't know. I don't know what the problem is, but I just like that seat bolster. A couple other things here. So there's no cluster anymore, just like the Cooper. There is, of course, an optional, am I correct to say it's optional, heads-up display?
Globally, it's optional.
Okay.
The US is going to be standard.
Look at that.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm setting you up, but I'm not. So standard heads-up display is actually really, really nice to see, because I think that's one thing that I think you don't have to have it, but it is really nice to have. I mean, you've got your speed right here. It's not hard to figure that out. Not that different than the R50 and R53, by the way.
Exactly.
But that is a really nice touch. And then other than that, we've got some really cool things in the center dash. The center console. This new shifter, which is pretty intuitive. I mean, if it's going to be an automatic, then make it as minimal as possible, is my view. We've got the key, and the key is a kind of a version of a key. You twist it.
Exactly.
There's no more push button.
Exactly.
Which is interesting.
It's very retro. I'm sure there's a lot of new drivers coming into the market right now that don't even know what a metal key in a car might look like. Exactly. This is definitely reminiscent of that.
And so you've got your experiences, the big toggle. You've got your volume control over here, which I think is interesting because it's actually near the passenger, and I assume that was on purpose because most drivers are just going to use the steering wheel.
Yeah, I mean that's I would say a fair observation. Yeah, you more than likely will use a steering wheel, but also we want to make sure that the controls for the vehicle's movement are closest to the driver. So that means having the gear selector and the park button closer to.
And there's a little dot here. Is that a light sensor?
No, that's your interior temperature sensor.
Oh, really? Interesting. Interesting.
Thermostat. Yeah.
And that's the only There's a gloss black tray or sort of panel behind these switches. That's the only kind of piano black in this car, which
For the interior, yes.
for OCD folks like myself, that's really going to be nice. So we don't have to worry about
You don't
that
have to
anymore.
keep your polishing cloth nearby, right?
I do want to talk about just a couple more things here. The tray is awesome for phones. I've got iPhone 15 Pro Max, whatever they're called, the really big one, fits perfectly, no problems anymore. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And then this does not open. This center armrest is fixed. Is that correct?
That's correct. I mean, you do have some movement adjustments.
move it up.
If you just for comfort reasons, but there is no storage inside of this armrest in particular. You do have a tray right below it. You'll have some charging functions down there as well, some plugs that you can use. But you have the center box, and the center box is lockable in the sense that you do have to pull a tab to actually unlock it, so you can't just wiggle the top or anything.
I see.
So you do have a area that you can hide something if you need to.
And I heard somebody tell me a story about how this is actually, if you take the rubber off, there's a screw here, and you can just remove that.
Well, it was installed somehow.
And you can take this
so
rubber off.
You can take it out somehow, yeah.
Supposedly, the same person said it's very possible that an aftermarket company or Mini might be having different versions of this, or there could be different things.
I'm sure I know who this person is, and I'm sure they know more about that than I do.
They may have designed the car. So on record, that person did tell me those things. It's kind of an ingenious little system. But again, a lot of textiles here, which is really cool. All recycled. So
90% recycled material.
Recycled.
PET plastic, so that's water bottles, soda bottles, and so on.
Very cool.
So yeah, nice sustainable material, but also still feels pretty premium.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, it really does. And I think that's what's interesting to me is even some of there is plastics. I mean, this is not a luxury car, in a sort of 7 Series mold, but from a material finish, it feels nice. So I think you've done some different things here and kind of ingenious things to hide certain elements of the obvious area where any car maker, even at a $50,000 car or price level, isn't going to spend a ton of money. And I think it's been thoughtful in terms of a lot of the interior. Other than that, I mean, again, first impressions for me, really impressive. There's some things that certainly I will get used to, but not the center screen. I think it's really intuitive.
Yeah.
Just from a first glance perspective, I mean, Apple CarPlay works perfectly, which is really, really nice to see.
Yeah.
And I know Android Auto is built in by default as well.
Both standard as well. Yeah. And actually, even with Apple CarPlay like we have here, you can actually customize the background a bit to make it all flow in a different color scheme if you want to.
That's
you
really
have your
cool.
settings, and you can just hit wallpaper there in the center, and you have other options you can choose from. And that'll be
really cool.
a whole immersive experience.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty neat,
Once
right?
again, yeah, very cool. Let's set it to all black, like I normally do. In fact, if you set it to all black, it just looks like the interface.
Yeah.
It's actually really interesting.
Exactly. It all blends nicely together.
And what is also really cool is the micro animations in this car. In I should say in iOS 9, they're really, you just see the range is 29 miles. It just adds just a sense of playfulness to the entire experience, which I guess it seems obvious when you look at it, but no other car does it like this.
Exactly.
Which is really, really cool.
Yeah, this is an industry first, even just having a round center display here. This is 9.4 inches OLED screen, super thin, nice contrast ratios, bright colors, good viewing angles from all sides. And yeah, I mean, the designers that created OS 9 definitely spent a lot of time to make sure every movement, every color, every screen and icon placement is truly MINI.
Yeah, it shows, and it shows everywhere. With those words in mind.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, appreciate the time, and as always, looking forward to driving this thing.
I'm looking forward to seeing you drive this thing.
Great. Let's make a date. Sounds good. Cheers. There you have it. 19 full minutes of dissecting the Countryman JCW. This is an all-new car, and we really wanted to spend the time we needed to talk with, of course, the product owners themselves who understand this car better than anyone, bring that to you in an exclusive way, and really dig into the details that I know that many of you have been looking for. Huge thanks to Vikash and the entire team at MINI USA for being so open with their questions and asking us for feedback as well, which is always awesome to see. If you like the video, please give us a like. Of course, subscribe to the channel. We have a lot more coming. There are a lot more things to talk about with this car, with the new F66 Mini Cooper, the ICE, or the internal combustion engine that's coming, the new version, and the J01, the all-electric Mini Cooper. And there is, of course, there's an Aceman coming as well. So there's a lot coming in the Mini world, and we're going to have all of it for you at MotoringFile.com.